Thanks for joining us. My name is Istiar. I'm an admissions counselor here at Trinity College. I do international admissions. We're here to talk about finding your second home and navigating the college search journey. I'm gonna let Manny introduce himself as well today.
Wonderful. And hello, everyone. My name is Manny. I'm also an admissions counselor at Trinity. And we're just really excited to kind of get underway, really show you, kind of get started on this whole College Decoded series. But, even more so, it's really important throughout this process to really, we'll talk about this later on, but really find the right fit for you, right? Where are you going to feel confident in attending these next couple of years when you enter college? And really, it's going to be a place where you make a lot of connections and really kind of get a foundation for the rest of your career outlook, where you might go down the path. So with that, we're just going to kind of outline a little bit of what to expect for today. So just have a little bit of a checklist here that I'm going to run through, and then I'll toss it over to Istiar. But first, we're going to kind of go over a bit of the timeline for building a strong application. Really this entire checklist is a really great tool to use, just kind of like a general overview. But, first is definitely building a timeline for a strong application. You want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and really just, including as much information as you can throughout this process, either connecting with us, really just making sure that you're revealing as much as yourself as you feel comfortable. Second is determining fit, as we discussed briefly during your college search. Again, this is an institution that you're hopefully going to be in for the next few years. And you really want to make sure that it's an institution that at the end of that time you're with it, you feel very confident in your decision. You feel very proud to have, not only have gone through your academic journey with them, but, really feel proud that you attended there. Third is really, the application process itself. Make sure you get all the details that you can. It's really important to just make sure you have all the elements to your application that you need, whether that's preparing your essay, getting your recommendation letters, everything like that. Just make sure you have everything lined out. It's, again, really important to make sure that you're as organized as possible during this process, because it can get a little, if you're not kind of keeping track, it can get a bit daunting at times. But, again, that's where, the resources like either community-based organizations or, counselors like us or your high school counselor, secondary school counselor, that's where we kind of come into play with that. We kind of help you move along. Application evaluation and admissions, that's kind of the step where the application gets to our door. We take a look at it, really look through all the materials that you've included with that. And then lastly, the most important thing I feel, at least on this list, managing stress and mental health. As I mentioned before, the college process can be a little bit daunting sometimes. I remember going through and applying for colleges my first round, and full disclosure, I was a first generation student. I really didn't have any precedence in terms of kind of where to go from here and how to navigate. And it was just really nice to kind of, come back to center at the end of the day and, really just focus on, not only the things that went well, but, kind of set goals for yourself. Really make sure that you're not overloading at the end of the day and trying to cram everything in at once. But with that, we'll kind of move forward here. Pass it off to Istiar.
Thank you, Manny. As you may notice, we're going to build a strong foundation today and then take you through a timeline. So for those of you who are mostly done with your college applications and have just submitted those timeline, those apps, we still have some things for you. We're still happy to answer those questions, but you may find that, whoa, a lot of this goes way back. So thanks for hanging in there with us, though. I like to talk to students, and whether it's about a certain piece of the application or just the application overall, what's the secret? What's the magic trick? And I often find that some of the most successful students aren't doing things for the sake of the college application. You're doing things because it's the right thing to do to be successful as a student, in a school, as an individual, building good habits. And by the end of your 4 years of high school, however many years are left, you find that you don't really need to do any any work for your college application because all the pieces are already there. So, we encourage students to start early thinking about what they want to do, what can they improve upon, how can they manage their tasks and responsibilities better. And one of the biggest things is asking for help. That's the top item on this list, because we tell all first year students, the biggest challenge for most people is not just figuring out where the help is, but figuring out how to ask for that help. Because we get a lot of high achieving students, coming to college, you've made it through high school, you are probably a leader in your classroom, in your clubs, in some form, you are often helping others, but we all need to learn at some point in life how to ask for help. So, make sure you're not trying to take things on by yourself when there's a problem, and that you're taking advantage of the resources available to you in your school. Your teachers are the first line to consult. Asking your family for help is obviously an option. You have your counselor, your guidance counselor, your college counselor. So whenever something seems insurmountable, stressful, simply learn to ask for help. And there are many, many people out there that are happy to assist you in finding solutions. And as you cultivate that habit, you can also model that for other students and show it's okay to ask for help. And that's what we want to teach our students coming into the college setting as well. When we think about, transitioning to a college environment, you're transitioning into a rigorous curriculum. And so we want to make sure students are prepared for that level of study and curriculum as they enter college. So talk to your counselors. Some of you may be working with an advisor outside of your high school. And so we talk about community organizations as well that assist students in the college process. Talk about your curriculum, however much time you have left to map out. It could be a year, it could be 3 years of high school, depending on where you are in the process. Sit down and talk about what kind of classes you want to try. How are you going to challenge yourself and grow over the next 4 years with your classes, right? How are you going to stay engaged? What's interesting to you? Are you going to sacrifice, your passion for music just because you want to take AP Chem and make it look good on a college application? I don't encourage that, right? But, think about the choices and decisions you'll have to make based on your school's offering and your own desires and plans on how you want to challenge yourself and what kind of, you don't have to decide what major you want to pursue, but, what do you want to try in high school to help start narrowing down that list, right? Take a computer science class, love it, keep doing it, hate it, stop doing it. It's okay. But take advantage of the time you have in high school. Time management. Other skills, I talked about asking for help. A lot of students find that, engaging with clubs, activities outside the classroom, sort of help organize their calendar, but figure out how to find a healthy balance for yourself between all your academics, the rigor, the homework, and your social life, right? We don't want students to be burning out week after week, just pursuing the top grades and not really engaging, because campuses like Trinity, I'll use Trinity as an example, we want students to be engaged with their community, right? Not just students that know how to read books and do their homework. So managing your time is important to also keeping that stress at bay. Starting off strong with your GPA, for those of you who have time, it's a lot easier to maintain a strong, solid GPA if you start off in your first year of high school than it is to work back up. There's just something psychological about it. You might end up with the same GPA after 4 years as someone else if you start off from different points, but it's a lot of sort of mental perseverance to overcome a low start to that GPA. Not saying it's impossible. And also want to point out that we do look at trends throughout your high school. So if you're improving that GPA, by all means, keep those upward trends going if you figure out what's working for you at a later point past your first year. But I've already mentioned it here. I'll finish off by saying follow your heart, do what you're interested in, right? Don't do things just for the sake of building your resume, just for the sake of building a college app, because when you do things for yourself, that's when your application is going to be the most genuine. And that's when you're going to be able to most easily excite us, talk about the things that you're excited about, the things that you've been learning because you chose to do that. It's not someone else that's chosen it for you. It's not someone else that's just told you to do something and you're blindly following it. And we want you to continue keeping up that genuine interest and exploration when you come into college. So those are some of the habits. I'll pause there and pass it on to Manny for the next slide.
Beautiful. And, next up, we're really going to talk about this idea of making sure you get connected, not just early, but throughout this entire process, right? it's important to reach out to your resources as much as possible, especially, again, as the CR mentioned, it's important to ask for help. You're not alone in this. A lot of folks have gone through this process, and it's important to be able to pick their brains from it. The first thing that I really want to highlight, engage with your school and local community as well. So not just, the getting help aspect, but in terms of being involved in your community, really, not just for the sake of beefing up your activities list, but it's also, kind of tying into that mental health and wellness aspect. You're really getting involved with your peers and getting involved with the local community, especially at an institution like Trinity. We really value that, especially living in a city as vibrant and as thriving as Hartford. We really value our connection to the community and those connections that our students are really able to forge throughout. And you'll find a lot of institutions also value that when it comes to looking at different individuals' applications. So just to make sure, again, really be connected throughout this entire process. Pursuing leadership or engaging roles, be more than just a passive member. By no means does it need to be every single club or organization you founded from the ground up, and et cetera, et cetera. But we really want to see, kind of this idea of going back to trend. We really want to see a not only natural progression into kind of those more leadership roles, but are you helping your organization or club move forward in a positive way? Are you making an impact in that organization? And it doesn't necessarily need to be that you're, the class president and you're putting forth different changes in the school, but you can be a really active member in these organizations and still make positive changes. Not necessarily sitting in a leadership role. Of course, it's really important to again, be engaging in that. And, it's nice to see those leadership roles in your activities, but, it's not a must have. Again, really, we're focusing on not just being a passive member and, kind of just sitting there for 4 years being like, great, we're watching everything happen. I attended a fundraiser. Awesome. But, again, really just be engaging. Building relationships with your teachers. This is really going to tie into getting those recommendation letters. Again, being able to seek help as well. It's just a really important aspect of kind of transitioning into college. Your teachers have a lot of valuable advice to hand off to you as students, once they went through this process as well and applying to colleges and really just going through. And, again, for the sake of the recommendations as well, building those relationships, they can write you a much more detailed narrative, and they're able to really get into who you are as a person and communicate that with us. Speaking to your guidance counselor or community organization about opportunities, really, again, kind of tying back into that engaging with the local community. We really want to see you implementing not only just changes, but we really want to see that you value your connections into the world around you. You're ready to explore and you have this curiosity. And then lastly, discussing how to get involved with family and friends. It goes without saying, it's really, sometimes the most valuable support system can be your family and friends at the end of the day. And, whether that's getting them involved through, hey, mom, can you look at this essay for me? I just want to kind of work out a few things. Or, hey, best friend, can I, kind of toss off some ideas? I'm struggling here. Really just make sure that you're getting connected overall and being able to not only continue beefing up your application and whatnot, but it's really valuable to not only mental health and managing stress, that you're able to go to those people and seek help. But with that, I'll pass it back over to SDR.
All right, I'm going to talk about language. And this series is literally called College Decoded. We're here to sort of demystify, interpret, explain, all the things that, go into a robust college search. And it's not just, for Trinity. So I encourage everyone, I'll put an early plug in here, to check out our later sessions and participate. You're going to start hearing language, if you're not familiar yet, that's thrown around, bandied about with, by college admissions counselors, because it's stuff that we talk about every day. And sometimes I even forget that I throw an acronym in here, name of a form out there that might be just specific to Trinity, but there's a general idea of every school requiring it. make yourself familiar with the language, but also ask questions of the experts. Ask your admissions counselors, whatever institution you're applying to, if there's a term, a process, a deadline, something that doesn't make sense, simply ask so that you understand what you need to do and what's expected, right? If there's an unclear question on an application, our job isn't to sit in our offices, hide all day, and watch your emails go by and put them in the trash can. No, we're here to answer your questions, to chat with you, to talk to you, and help you understand the process, right? We're admissions counselors. We don't just, make decisions in a dark room and send out decision letters. So we're here to help. Names of applications, common application, coalition application. If you're applying to California, the U.S.A system has their applications. So, application system names, sort of program names, career centers, study abroad. This is one of the most interesting, but also most frustrating aspect of admissions in the United States. Every college does it differently. So what they'll call career advising in one place, we at Trinity will call career and life design. And then another office will call it postgraduate advising. So, start to figure out the general ideas and then figure out what the institution might call it so you can investigate those services and figure out if they have what you need, different requirements, different classes, different testing regimes. Some other big ones that I always like to remind students of are test optional, test blind, test required, or test aware, however you may phrase it. Different schools have all sorts of different requirements around testing now, so make sure you understand those. We also have presentations as part of the series that focus on financial aid. If you love terminology, just go explore financial aid and all the things that need to be submitted and understood there. But need aware, need blind, right? Need sensitive. Colleges have all sorts of different things that they consider. So figure out what those mean. We're also happy to answer any questions if you have a term on your mind that you want interpreted. And the purpose of understanding all this isn't just to be successful in the process, but to make sure you can find the right college for you, right? If, a disability services office is called something else at a different college, and that second college has everything else you want, but they're sort of missing that learning support that you really need. Try and find it, ask around. They might simply call it something different, right? If there's a financial form that needs to be submitted in one place and it's specific to that institution, make sure you don't need to submit that at other institutions because they might call it something else. They might have a different form, right? And it might just be the same information, but on a different form. And then there's some big overarching terms that'll be applicable to all processes. The common application, a lot of colleges say that, FAFSA, CSS profiles. So take some time and ask lots of questions about the language when you see something new. I'm going to hand it back to Manny.
Beautiful. So why don't we go into, in terms of, you mentioned fit. It's really important throughout this process. You're not settling for any colleges. Really, at the end of the day, what I really like to kind of highlight, and one of our SAAs, one of our student admissions associates, Jolie, she actually kind of coined this phrase. At the end of the day, you are the prize. You really need to remember that throughout this process. You are not, the colleges are lucky to have you at the end of the day. It's important to, again, not settle. I just like to sometimes say that in there, but, when you're visiting different colleges and considering fit, what colleges have the things that you're looking for. So as Istira mentioned, let's say that you're looking for some disability resources. Does that college have it not only, in some capacity, but are they very explicit and transparent with their policies? Are they willing to go the extra mile to accommodate you? Different things like that. It's always important to consider all the resources that they're willing to offer their students and that they're as transparent and willing to communicate that with you. Which ones check off your most important boxes? Again, this idea of making sure that the institution that you decide to align yourself with also aligns with your values, whether that be your personal beliefs, whether that be your academic interests and academic kind of projections overall. Which institution is going to give you the most out of your college experience at the end of the day, versus which institution are you really going to be settling for? And, kind of at the end of those 4 years, being like, maybe I should have kind of gone down a different road. You really want to make sure that again, it's important to consider you at the end of all this. You're not trying to squeeze yourself into a box. You're really, you have plenty of options to explore throughout this process. You are the most important thing. Staying in communication with your high school counselor or community organization, again, reaching out to those resources, not only those folks, but, folks at different institutions, here at Trinity, and especially in our office, our main philosophy going throughout this process, if you do end up at Trinity and join our thriving community, we're of course more than happy to have you. If life leads you to a different path, down to a different institution, our job as admissions professionals, we're here to help no matter what, whether that's any questions that you might have throughout this process for applications, or, just kind of any advice that you're looking for regarding navigating this entire process. These professionals, and we're really here to help you throughout this. And then lastly, drafting a college wish list. It's important to, again, explore all your different options and, really, when you're considering what's going to check off your most important boxes, those are the colleges that you're going to be adding to your list here. Those are the colleges that you're possibly going to be visiting, whether in person or virtually. Those are the ones that you're going to be reaching out to with any questions that are pertinent to your experience as a student. You want to make sure that you're tailoring your experience to the fullest at the end of the day. So really make sure that while you're drafting this list of colleges and, kind of outlining where can I possibly see myself, whether that's, really locally or halfway across the country. It's important to kind of sit down and really think, where do I really want to kind of see myself? But with that, I'll pass it back off to you, Esther.
We're getting closer to the application. And this is, this slide in itself can be an hour presentation. So we're really going to touch upon it and then expand upon more of these elements later through our College Decoded series. If you have one takeaway from today, start early, right? If you're already in this presentation, it's maybe your junior year, maybe even your sophomore year, or your first year in high school, you're on the right track. You're thinking about it, but start as early as possible. Don't wait that week before the deadline to try and write a college essay. There's a lot of work that goes into writing an effective and good college essay that's going to share, information about yourself, your story with the admissions office. But, taking that theme in mind, start drafting personal statements. And this doesn't have to be your final college essay. Maybe you're an 11th grader in high school and you just start jotting down ideas. Maybe you jot down an outline, you think about it once a week, you sit down and start asking yourself questions, who am I? What needs to go into this essay? And then over the summer, you start bringing it together to be more cohesive, to tell a story. So, draft those personal statements early so you can have people review them, look at them, help provide feedback. I always recommend finding a trusted friend, maybe it's your college counselor, your teacher, someone who can look over your essay and not just fix the grammar, but tell you if this sounds like you. Right? If this gets a point across. Request your recommendations. These you don't have to do that early, but do them at the beginning of the school year, or maybe even late summer, versus 2 weeks before the application deadline. Your teachers want to help, your counselors and advisors want to help, and they need some time to write your letters. It's not that they need 3 weeks to write your letter. They need 3 weeks to write all the 50 letters from students that have requested them, right? So, be considerate, be kind. Back in my day, I had to deliver a bunch of envelopes with stamps on them. Now we don't do that. Everything's via email and electronic and much more convenient, but, your teachers and counselors are going to help you if an emergency comes up, but you want to avoid making that call in the last week of December saying, oh, I just, found out I need a recommendation for this college. Can you write it in the next, 48 hours? I also recommend, getting them their favorite candy bar, maybe throwing in a lunch here and there. Be nice to your counselors and teachers and they'll write you some great letters. Preparing for any standardized tests you may need to take. And this is something you'll have to figure out in the colleges you're applying to, what tests are actually required. Do tests actually help you in the process at this point, with a lot of schools being test optional or even test blind? But if there are exams and tests that you need to take, whether it's the SAT, ACT, English language exams, TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, what preparation do you need to do so you don't just walk in there, spend 6 hours taking a test and not get the best score that you could have gotten, right? Not saying do test prep for 2 years and fill all your after school time with that, but it does help to understand what test you're going into and do a little preparation usually if you want to help yourself with those test scores. And finally, figure out what options are going to be available for you over the spring and the summer, and we'll talk about it in the next couple of slides. But how do you want to invest your time and resources in visiting college campuses if you're able to do so, right? Between local, international, regional options. Are you going to travel? Are you just going to sort of connect virtually with those colleges? So understanding colleges through those visits is going to help you develop that application and really connect with the college that you're applying to and articulate that in those essays. Back to Manny.
Beautiful. And let's get into kind of this transition period. So specifically on this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of that 11th grade buffer. So kind of looking at the spring and summer here, really just kind of starting to think a little bit more about the college process and the different aspects of that. So you might be thinking of visiting a couple of those colleges, either virtually or in person. Really trying to start poking your head around, seeing maybe this institution might be a good fit. This institution has this available for me. There's a lot of perks going here, and really getting a sense and a feel for what it would be like to be a student there. It's kind of the perfect buffer time, since it's not kind of, you're not at that last minute sort of stage yet. So visiting some college is really important to kind of get in there, at least if you're looking to prepare a little bit ahead of time. Really good to get those in early. With virtual programming as well, great example, our College Decoded series that we're currently running. But different programming that's available at institutions, not just based on certain topics, but there's just a variety of resources available for students like you. It's really important to kind of get a sense of what is offered and available to you throughout this entire process to help you along. And kind of on the other side of that, again, getting back to virtual visits as well, any virtual information sessions about the colleges and institutions, kind of sticking to those that might not be as readily available at the moment, so those that, like kind of rewinding a little bit, those that might be far across the country or, a decent plane ride, really being able to explore your options. 12th grade class schedule, you really want to kind of start thinking about what classes am I going to be taking to not only further my education overall, but what's going to feel like a natural progression in terms of my learning path here. As we mentioned earlier, a lot of times when we're looking at these applications, the biggest thing that we want to see is this kind of nice upward trend. It doesn't necessarily need to be your perfect straight A's, et cetera, but it's important that you're naturally improving as things go along, whether that's, grade-wise or whether that's even with the rigor itself. You're taking difficult classes, taking things that are going to not only continue to educate you further, but really just provide a nice, decent challenge overall. Taking on a couple more APs, maybe enrolling in a dual enrollment class. The possibilities are really endless with that. But it's just really important to consider, not kind of just dropping off. A lot of times, it can be tempting to see senior year as this is going to be the fun time. I'm going to just kind of go towards the route of all electives. We're going to take every single thing. And, it's important to, again, really consider enjoying your academic experience going into college. But, we also still want to see that your rigor is consistent. And a lot of colleges also feel the same way. It's, really want to continue your academic endeavors throughout. That includes 12th grade. But again, you can, of course, feel free to tie in a lot of those other fun classes as well, especially, again, kind of going back to my own college experience and transitioning into there. I mean, while I was still maintaining rigor and everything going into 12th grade, it's also an important time to consider, managing your stress levels and everything. You might want to take a fun class or two. Drafting essays, kind of going back to preparing your personal statement, as SDR mentioned, taking your time to think more about what to include. This is a really great buffer time, especially during the summer months, while you're enjoying your time out and kind of taking back and relaxing a little bit. It's really a great time to start drafting and really going through the different topics. What might you talk about? How can you kind of go more in depth into your subject matter? Things like that. Reaching out to your support system and asking further feedback at this time. It's kind of good to pull a lot of different variety and a lot of different opinions at this point. Interviews. Really big thing here. A lot of colleges will offer these interviews for prospective students, especially during the application process. It's important for not just us here at Trinity, but regardless of what institution, it's important for them to be able to get to know you. That activity section in the Common App is pretty small. So it's important to not only include details about yourself in your personal statement and supplemental essays, but consider scheduling an interview. An example here at Trinity, our interviews are conducted through our student admissions associates primarily. They're current students here who are seniors and are really able to give nice insight into what the institution is like. So really just start considering scheduling a lot of different ways to interact like that. And, biggest thing throughout this process that we're going to keep repeating and kind of over and over, remember to relax. This is, again, while the college process and the transition may seem daunting at first, it's always important to remember, enjoy the ride while you can. It's, again, it's really important to enjoy all the different aspects of transitioning into college. At what other point in your life are you going to be taking such a big step into furthering, possibly your career path and to furthering education overall? It's important to remember to take a second to breathe and come back to center. Not everything is going to be rush. I need to get this in, unless of course you're leaving your personal statement for a week before, which we don't want to do. But, again, it's important to really enjoy the process overall. And with that, I will pass it back off to you, Esther.
Right, now we're looking into the future for many, maybe into the past for some. Fall of 12th grade is when it gets really busy. We're just busy all year round. But, for students in particular, this is where planning is really going to help. We mentioned time management earlier. It's not just something that helps you succeed in college. It helps you, stay low stress throughout the college application process. Anyone who's listening to this presentation, by the time fall of 12th grade rolls around, I'm expecting you all to have connected with some admissions counselors, ask your questions, find the rep for your territory, whatever it may be. But, if you haven't already, reach out, find out who your person is and, who can answer your questions, who's your go-to when you have some difficulties in the application process or you have questions about the college experience there. It's really important because the admissions office sort of reflects what that experience is going to be like when you're on a college campus, right? There's different types of admissions offices and different types of college personalities. Some offices, may not be as responsive. Some offices will be really, really individual, hands-on, hey, let's chat every week and make sure you're making progress with your app. And it's not to say that's 100% reflective of everything you're going to experience for your 4 years at college, but it is indicative of sort of a personality of the institution, right? That's how we're caring for you in the application process, how you're going to be cared for as a student at that college. So it's important to connect, get to know people. Different pieces of your application, revise that personal statement, which by now we've been drafting and starting over the summer. Those activities lists, I tell students, you don't need a laundry list of 20, 30 different activities. As Manny said, you don't need to found 5 different clubs by the time your 11th grade year is over. You just need to be genuinely involved. And what are the key highlights of your involvement that you want admissions counselors to notice first, right? What sort of may rise to the top of those activities lists that you put on the application? What are some details that you want to make sure you include? Any additional requirements, make sure you start checking off all the different application deadlines that the colleges you're applying to. Are you applying early to certain colleges? Are there specific programs that you want to apply to? Are there extra essays that you need to submit even for the regular application? As I said, every college is going to do it differently. So lay out a table, do whatever you need to stay organized, but figure out all the timelines and all the different requirements that you need to get submitted. And not all of those may go through one central portal, right? There is the common application, but sometimes institutions have materials that are submitted outside of the common application, for example, and you want to make sure everything is submitted through the proper channels. And then another thing to think about, this doesn't require as much sort of intellectual preparation as much as, talking with your family, prepping some paperwork maybe, but prepare for the financial aid process if you're applying for aid. We have, the FAFSA and the CSS profile are the really big names that come up in terms of forms that need to be filled out. Again, they're not intellectually strenuous, but they take time to fill out, and you want to set aside some time for that. You want to pursue scholarship opportunities, whether they're through the university. Sometimes the university or college may have a specific application for scholarships. And other times there are outside scholarship opportunities. Who doesn't like a little extra money, right? You might qualify for something based on your background, your location, your activities. Coke scholarship always comes to mind, the Coca-Cola scholarship, because I know that's the one that's out there. But there are companies, engineering companies that offer scholarships for college for you to pursue certain programs. It's stuff that you might already be doing that you just sort of have to spend a little time digging around for. And even if it doesn't seem like a lot relative to your ultimate college bill, right? $2,000, $5,000 here, another few $100s there. It helps buy books. It helps you get that new laptop. It helps you buy that plane ticket or bus ticket sometimes, and save money for other stuff. So take advantage of those opportunities as they come about. And if you haven't already by this summer, interview. Interviews are highly recommended, at least here at Trinity. And I tell students, whenever an institution offers you the opportunity to interview, just do it. Think about certain schools where you may have 10 other students at your school applying to a certain college. And if half of those students have interviewed and half of them haven't interviewed, the admissions committee is going to sit down and try to come to a conclusion. Who's more interested in our institution, right? Very likely the students who have taken the extra time to interview, and that's usually a 20 to 30 minute conversation. It could be with an alum, a graduate of the institution. It could be with an admissions counselor. It could be with a current student who's an interviewer. But interviews typically aren't hard. They're not meant to trick you or trip you up. They're meant as opportunities for us to learn about you and for you to learn about the college if you have any other questions for the person interviewing you. So take advantage of that time to interview. Don't squander it. All right, Manny, take us home with the end of 12th grade.
Yes, so getting into spring here, so kind of the home stretch essentially, really considering all the different aspects and the preparation tactics that you've put in. You've prepped your personal statement, you've got all these different aspects to your application, you've maybe scheduled some interviews here and there, really just kind of preparing for the home stretch. So first thing, considering any financial aid award packages. A lot of times in the spring, depending on the institution, you'll probably get your aid package around the same time as your decision, or kind of a similar time frame. So really just looking at that and see what's best going to serve you at the end of the day. Connecting with the campus community. A lot of different institutions will have admitted student events that you can attend. Really get a feel for the campus again, not just from a touring standpoint or from an information session standpoint, but you'll get to see kind of the campus live and bustling in action, really being able to attend those different events and offerings that are available. Keeping up with your academics. This is probably, not the biggest thing, but it's really important to maintain in the back of your head while you're going through spring. Again, we really want to make sure that you're keeping up your momentum all the way up to the finish line. And while there's other different important aspects of this, keeping up with your academics through the spring until you kind of reach that finish line. Really want to make sure that it's not just, oh, I already got my decision, we're good. A lot of institutions are going to request a final transcript just to make sure that, again, your academic progress is still continuing throughout the end. So just make sure to keep that in consideration. And then visiting again, as I mentioned earlier, accepted student events. A lot of these are going to provide additional context. You'll get to meet students as well from the institution, kind of in a more natural setting in a sense. You'll get to really feel immersed in the experience of what it'll be like to attend that institution at the end of the day. A lot of different events could include current students speaking, a lot of panels, just a variety of ways for you to really get the feel for how your next 4 years might look. But with that, I'll pass it back.
All right, I'm back to give away more secrets. Right, the big secret of getting admitted to college isn't very secret, but a lot of people think it is. And this isn't stuff that you work on in terms of evaluating, but these are things that you build over your 4 years of high school. Before that, as you grow and develop. And these are simply a few things that we're looking at and some things to keep in mind as you prepare your college applications. And we're thinking about your academics because every college, we want students that are going to come and succeed and graduate in 4 years or 2 years if you're going to a 2-year institution, right? But our goal is to make sure you succeed in college. We're not here to admit a huge class and then fail out half that class in their first semester, right? So we're looking at your academic character, it's called, because it's not just about your GPA and grades. How do you engage in the classroom? Because a liberal arts institution, right? We have a very different discussion-based learning style, small classrooms. We want students to be actively engaged, versus a much larger lecture hall where maybe you're more passively engaged in that process. And there's different learning processes, different institutions and styles. So, we're looking to see if that character is a match for us besides just that rigor and preparation. Your extracurriculars and your activities. I mentioned already, we're not just looking for students who will sit in the library all afternoon, all evening, go back to their dorm room, make some ramen noodles and go to sleep just to go to class the next day and then go back to the library. The library is a wonderful place to hang out. I hang out there too sometimes, but how are you going to engage with others, people around you? Because at an institution like Trinity, again, using it as an example, you're going to learn more from your peers and the other students on campus than you're going to learn from any class, any textbook, any professor, right? So how do you engage with your community, not just day-to-day, eating lunch, conversation, but sharing your own perspectives and your interests, and how do you get involved in activities and build community and be part of that community? Your personal character, right? Just builds more into that. And you don't all have to be leader, class president, type A, organized. A community takes all types to thrive and be successful and be supportive to each other. So remember that, be you, right? Be genuine, be a good person. There isn't any specific shape, type, quality of person that we're looking for. Oftentimes you'll hear that colleges are looking for well-rounded individuals. And, that's sort of not true. We're not looking for every individual to be a Renaissance person. You play chess and football and you're class president and you're a tech crew and you're getting straight A's and you're studying science and you're studying drama, right? We're looking for students with edges, right? Who are shapely in some way, who have corners, so that we can ultimately get a well-rounded class, a class of students that has bassoon players, a class of students that has athletes, a class of students that has research scholars, right? And so remember that you have your own contribution to make to that community. So the final thing to think about is, if you're going through your search process, you're looking for institutions that fit you. Ranking lists often muddle this up, but I can tell you, go look at U.S. News and World Report, look at whoever's standing on the 10th spot and the 12th spot, or the 70th spot and the 75th spot, whatever you're interested in, pick any two colleges. They are very different institutions and very different type of students will thrive at those institutions. They'll be in vastly different locations, very likely. They'll have very different programs. So, find institutions that are gonna work for you, move beyond those ranking lists. And, what's important for you is very likely important to those institutions as well, if that's a match. And so expressing what you're looking for in college and why you want to go to that certain college is important, so they can see that you've understood the fit there that we've mentioned earlier. So there's no better person to talk about how to stay sane through all this than Manny, with his cheery mood every morning.
You're too kind, too kind. And it looks like we're coming up actually on my favorite topic, managing your stress and mental health. I'm really big into, recently fun fact, our office actually has kind of implemented this app called Headspace. You might have heard of it. It's kind of a nice way to come back to center. And really, a lot of our colleagues, as Sarah can also attest to this, it's just such a great way to kind of decompress at the end of the day. But really, I am a big advocate of managing your mental health and making sure that you're taking care of yourself at the end of the day. It's really important to listen to your body, whether that's getting a snack here and there, getting some water, using meditation as a different tool. Just really making sure that you're not letting things overwhelm you at the end of the day. Kind of rewinding a little bit, it's important to enjoy the process throughout this time. And there's a lot of different resources and ways for you to be able to manage that workload at the end of the day. You really don't want to get to that point where your head kind of explodes, essentially. It's really just important to consider and really listen to how you're feeling. Check in with yourself. Is there something I can kind of hold back on a little bit today? Do I really need to meet that deadline yet? Or can I just take a little bit of a break? And this kind of ties into always ask for help. Please, 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 use your resources that are available to you. Again, whether that's academic wise, going to your counselor, going to your advisor in your community organization, or going to an admissions counselor with questions, or even just going to your support system. And not only for the academics, like checking your essay, your personal statement, but reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Can we maybe have a movie night with friends? Or, hey, can we go out to dinner or something? Something to relax at the end of the day. It's always important to ask for help. You're never alone in these situations. You always have people in your corner. And it's just the paramount thing to remember throughout this entire process. Remember, you've got this. You've gotten this far. You've done your due diligence. You've done your research. You've made your lists. You've really just, again, have all the different aspects of success available to you. And you've really compiled everything. Now it's just time to really implement it into real life and kind of go forward. You've truly, 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 you've got this. You can do it. I believe in you. We all believe in you. And with that, I'll pass it back.
All right, so we simply wanted to put this here. It's very common in admissions. I've already mentioned it. The answer to most questions, is this type of student going to get admitted? Or if X, Y, and Z happen, what's the decision going to be? The answer to most questions is it depends. And it depends not only on the college that you're applying to, it also depends on the individual who's applying, because we don't have sort of rote standardized formulas that determine admission of students. And so, if I have a C on my transcript, am I going to get denied? It depends on a lot of other things than just your transcript and that C, right? Why did that C happen? Was there a family circumstance or a challenge that happened in your life? Is that really representative of your work? Are you a straight A student and you have a C? Is that C one of 20 other C's on your transcript, right? So it's going to depend both on the individual and the college. It's sort of this, give and take and a conversation. Think of this application as a way of engaging the college admissions office and sharing your story with them. The more information we have, the more we can take unusual things into consideration, right? And remember that this is a collective effort. It's about you, but it's so much more than just you taking on this process head on, right? You have yourself, you have your friends, you have your school officials, your counselors, your teachers, community organizations that may be supporting you as well. And of course, your admissions counselor. We're not here to be mean old gatekeepers. We're admissions counselors, not denial counselors. We want to help students make it through this process. Of course, I say that as we're a selective institution, right? But we have only so many beds at certain institutions, and that's part of the experience at some places, right? Maintaining a residential experience. So sometimes that selectivity comes in, but for better or for worse, right? Remember that, we're working through the challenges and difficulties alongside you to help you be successful at the end of the day, regardless of where you end up. And I really hope that students, take a moment in the midst of everything to reach out and help another friend through the process. Talk through the application, talk through what's stressing them out, help them read their essay. We all get so much help, but as a community, we can help each other succeed in this college application process. And at the end of the day, as Manny said, you're going to make it into college. Balance that list, engage with your reps, talk to people, ask for help. You're going to make it through this just fine. So, Manny, I think we have time for questions. Is this where we've landed now?
Yes, we have landed here. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to either, type them into the chat or, feel free to unmute yourself. We did have a question here recently. Does Trinity have a bachelor's in biochem? We do, in fact. All of our different majors and minors can be found on our website as well if you want to take some time to explore. Before we get into the questions, I also want to just kind of plug our future College Decodeds here. We do have a QR code up on the screen. If you want to be led over to the page, you can just scan that with your phone there. But we do have the next session starting January 26th. It's going to be at 6:30. It's going to be what's the big deal about small liberal arts and sciences colleges. So, feel free to sign up. Again, that link will bring you to the main page. So you'll see all the rest of the sessions as well you can sign up for. But with that, the floor is yours.
Feel free to unmute, love to have a conversation, type questions into the chat if you like.
We are here.
But if you have to run, we also get it. And we really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us. And so, yeah, we have a question here. Class is more lecture-based or discussion-based? Manny, you want to take it on?
Yeah, so really at Trinity, we have a kind of a combination here, but you will find the class sizes at Trinity are a lot smaller. We have about a 9-to-1 ratio. I would say that's around the right number. Yeah, around 9-to-1. Really, we encourage those kind of personal relationships with your professors. So you'll find that a lot of those, you have those like kind of lecture size courses are not really, what you see in the movies with like 200 people. Especially at an institution like Trinity, it's going to be a lot smaller. You'll have your kind of smaller sections as well. We also do have another question here. Are scholarships stackable? Kind of a different, an additional caveat to this. So with your financial aid at Trinity, you're automatically considered for any merit scholarships available. So anything that financial aid will add to your package, you will see there. Again, potential for them to be stackable, depending on what financial aid wants to award, essentially.
It's going to depend on the college, on the scholarship, how the scholarship is awarded, who it's coming from. So the answer may be yes. It may sometimes be no.
Yeah, especially if it's, let's say, an individual scholarship that's not affiliated through the institution, then there's going to be some other set of criteria that you'll have to follow. Any other questions? Again, no pressure if there's anything right now. Ooh, if I decide to change my major, how easy is that? Issa, you want to take this one?
Pretty easy. Everyone at Trinity starts undeclared. You come in, we're a liberal arts school. We want everyone to explore, different distribution areas and requirements. So you're going from the sciences to the arts to the languages. So you start off trying your hand at different things, and you don't actually declare a major even until the end of your second year at Trinity. If you want to change after that, there is some flexibility. Oftentimes students might do a second major because more often they find they're interested in more things and not less things. But changing from certain things is easier than others. So if you want to go from history to engineering and it's your senior year or last year of college, it's going to be a little tough. So within reason, right? But it tends to be very easy here. All right. Well, it looks like, we're wrapping up. We're coming up on the hour. So thanks again. Feel free to email either of us if you have any questions about today, other questions not related to the presentation. We're here to help. And remember that whatever challenge you have, just reach out if there's an unusual circumstance, a question, you need accommodation. We want to make sure this process is as not stressful as possible for you all.
Absolutely.
So thanks everyone. There's a Cambridge A-level question. I'll answer it. Departments may take credit for A-levels that you take, depending on the grades. Once you come to the college, ask the department, they'll figure that out. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all.
All right. Take care, everyone.